You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Ken Bechtel. When your heart says yes, should you follow it? Ladies, I'm super excited for you today because it is time to say yes in your life instead of maybe some other day, or maybe when this happens, or maybe next week, or maybe next month, because I have Ken Bechtel here and he is super amazing. He's an author, speaker, mentor. He's a podcast host. He has a recently released book, which we're so excited about, called Follow Your Yes. And in it, he provides people with guidance on how to build confidence and eliminate overwhelm across all areas of their life. And I'm super just happy for you to be here, Ken, because I think that, you know, when you look around the world, it's so easy to get caught in the what's wrong and the why nots. And not nows of our life. And I am just really grateful that you're here to talk about your book and what you're teaching around saying yes.
Well, awesome, Marni. It's great to be here. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because, as you said, there's a whole lot of things trying to get us not to follow our yes.
Yeah. So let's just kind of talk about the idea of your book and kind of the genesis of how it evolved and why you sort of felt drawn to this message about following your yes.
Well, it's kind of funny because I'd used this phrase for years and years and years. And to me, it just seemed like a normal thing. And then I realized that really isn't something people think about is what's my yes. I mean, we kind of know, like there's those things that we know are truth or are whatever, but we don't really phrase it that way. And what I found was that was one of the missing components. And the way I always phrase it is people were living a deferred life because they were waiting for the perfect time to live their yes. In the meantime, they were doing all the other things they're supposed to do or should do, or the world says is required of them, et cetera. And one of the things I realized over my years working in the relationship field was this was also playing out there, right? It's like, oh, well, I'm not really being true to what I need to be my best here. And so it's a compromise situation from the beginning. And so we're not setting ourselves up to win, and we're certainly not setting our partners up to win. So that's really was the genesis of it. And with my podcast, Speaking of Partnership, I would have a segment that was, I called it Follow Your Yes. And I didn't even remember I did this. That was years ago.
Okay.
And then I went, wait a minute. Why was I compelled to ask that question? And every time I did with the guest, you being one of them, people were like, oh yeah, that's a great question. And I realized this isn't something we have top of mind. And the more we can put it top of mind, then that's what we're leading our life with instead of getting to it eventually if we have the time and space.
I think this is so interesting because I'm not sure if you know this, but I sold my house and I'm living in an RV full time for a year. Yeah. And basically I decided to, follow that sort of yes, even though it was outside of my comfort zone. But what's interesting to me is that on the road, we've met so many different kinds of people, and so many of them are living their yes after they, checked whatever boxes they had to check and kind of waiting, right, to do certain things. And so my question to kind of kick us off here is, because I know so many people go through this in their inner dialogue, which is like, yeah, sure, Ken. I'd love to do A, B, C, and D, but I have to do this first, or I have to take care of this first, or after I get that sorted, then I'll do this. So how do you start? I mean, how do you even start when you feel like there are so many circumstantial limitations?
Yeah, which is a great question, because that's one of the things is we think our yes is like our life purpose. This is this big thing that's calling me. No, your yes is every moment of every day. What's the next thing? So if you're doing the yes that moves you towards the bigger yes, then you're still following your yes. The whole point is your yes is literally like stepping stones. And you take one yes and it leads to the next yes and it leads to the next yes. But here's the trick. You won't know what the next yes is until you take the first one. And that's what stops us. We want to know the whole thing. Tell me everything that's going to happen and how it's going to turn out and what's going to be the difficulties and all this stuff before I'll start.
It's so funny because I was literally just having a conversation with my coach because we've been on the road for 90 days. And it was like really scary for me to sell the house. We lived there for, 22 years, leave friends, blah, blah, it's not blah, blah, but it's the story. Right. And it has not been smooth or easy in lots of different ways. And I said to my coach, the challenge I thought I was going to have is not the challenge that I'm actually having. And it was super interesting because that's exactly what he said. He was like, well, most of the time we stay frozen because we're so worried about like what could go wrong. And I really was like, that's so interesting because I didn't know what my real challenge or test would be, right? Until I actually made the first move. So how do you get to that place, or how do you handle your like what ifs when you were thinking about those day-to-day small steps? How do you get out of the future? Futurizing, catastrophizing is basically my question.
Yeah. So the goal is that we're always moving in that direction, right? There's big yeses, there's small yeses. Like there's career or in your case, living arrangement type of yeses that are bigger ones. And then there's the day-to-day ones. Like, what do we do today? Now, one of the things that's interesting is just as you said it, Marni, was perfect, was, what are going to be the obstacles? What are going to be the challenges? Well, if we flip that around and go, how am I going to get to grow? How am I going to get stronger? And get on that side of the page, now it's exciting. It's not scary. It's like, wow, that's awesome. And you've probably heard the fact that they've studied, the human body and the only difference between excitement and fear is breathing.
Yes. Yeah, I have.
Physiologically, your body's doing the exact same thing. So we're talking about the same thing here. We're switching that and going, wait a minute, let's talk about how I get to grow. What's going to challenge me? What's going to be exciting, as opposed to, oh, how is this going to scare the bejesus out of me? Because we're still going to get scared. Your yes isn't always like something you're excited about, but it's still something you need to do. Just like when you have to have that difficult conversation. I'm not excited about this, but it's definitely my yes.
Well, that's an interesting thing too, because we talk about that a lot on our campus, is that sometimes your yes, which is like, I think of it like, I for me feel like it's a resonance, like, like it's just one of the things that people do is they're like, I know I have a sense of this yes, like this conversation I need to have, or this job isn't right for me, or this, I need to deal with this thing with my relationship, or I need to have a health check or whatever it is, right? They get this like calling inside, but they're afraid of it or they want to avoid it. So how do you handle that? And my second part is, how do you know if it's like really a yes?
Yeah.
How do you recognize that?
Of course. So the first thing to remember is avoiding something is never your yes. Your yes always moves you forward, not backwards. So like having a difficult conversation, and you spoke to this a moment ago when you said it's kind of a resonance. It's a connection. Your yes is a feeling. It's not intellectual. It actually comes from your heart. So another way you can look at it is it's your divine guidance. Now, here's the thing. Who's got a better view of what's possible, you or the divine? It sees the big picture you don't even know exists. So you may get an instruction or a guidance or something that says, I need to do this. And you're like, what in the world would I need to do? Why? What, huh? And you can't fathom how this is moving you forward. But if you just trust it, you'll be amazed. It'll be way beyond anything you could have come up with. Because this is the funny part. We want to know the whole story. But if I told you the whole story, if the divine came in and said, here's how it's going to work out, Marni, you wouldn't believe it anyhow, because it's so far beyond your possible comprehension where you're sitting today. That, I mean, think about, the guys who invented FedEx on a napkin in a kitchen. If somebody said, yeah, do this, and guess what's going to happen? They'd be like, okay, now this is crazy, because that's impossible. But look what happened. It's totally changed how people do business. It's totally changed our expectations of getting things across the world. So again, we can't possibly comprehend what's available to us. So we have to trust that system. So A is, don't worry about if it's an avoidant thing. You're going, well, that can't be my yes, because my yes always moves me forward. And then you break it and you just let it be. What's the one thing I can do right now that moves in that direction? I'm not going to solve everything, but I know if I go here, like let's say you were feeling sad. Okay, that's not someplace you want to be. Well, what's something I could do to move me towards where I want to be? And you come up with whatever it is, one thing, not I'm going to solve sadness forever. That's the thing, is we get so trapped in this idea of this, I want to have the answer to everything in one fell swoop. Well, that's not how it works. So we have to back up and go, what's this yes here, and this yes here, and this yes here? Literally, when you start doing that, you're just going from yes to yes to yes all day long.
I think that's so amazing. I think the other thing that I in the imaginings of our listeners, I was talking to my daughter about this the other day, because she's 26, and in January or February, she broke up with her boyfriend. And here it is. What are we in July? And she's like, sometimes I'm still like, oh my God, did I do the right thing? Right? Like I felt this wasn't right for me. Like I just knew there was something that I needed to do in this situation. And what we were talking about is, and I think this is kind of what you're alluding to, is like, given that moment, like the data that she had collected up into that point, right? Those small steps of what we know. And then you feel that, yes, you're making this decision based on everything you know at that time. And so when it does get challenging or hard after you follow a yes, or you take a step, or you're outside your comfort zone, it's really, it's like resiliency, right? Like, how can I keep the ball moving forward? Because doesn't our brain kind of want to keep going back to what was safe or what we knew or what was certain when you're on this journey of following your yes?
100%. And this is one of the big challenges, because our reptilian brain, which runs our life about 85 to 90% of the time, likes the known. So it doesn't like new things. And the reason is its job is to make sure you survive, right? Which basically means that you don't die. Well, if you haven't done something yet, it doesn't know for certain that you can survive it. But it knows anything you've done before, and you're still here breathing, so you must have survived it. Let's stay with those things. And this is why it's challenging to shift direction and move in a new direction, because your brain is fighting you, not from a negative space, but it's literally doing its job, which is keeping you alive. Mm-hmm. So we have to tap into the prefrontal cortex, which is the creative part of our mind. But by default, it only operates our world basically 10 to 15% of the time. So it's not the place we normally live. So we have to tap into that and make a conscious choice to go, wait a minute, I want to expand here. And yeah, it's going to be a little uncomfortable. That's what all new things are, uncomfortable. But I have this, I call it a calling, right? There's something calling me forward. Like, I'm guessing when you guys decided to, yeah, let's go live in an RV and do this, there was something there that, like, you couldn't even define it, but it just kept calling you to it. And it got you past all those rationalizations that were saying, but Marni, do you really want to do that? You won't have neighbors. You won't know who you're going to sit to, park next to every day, all these different things. And you're like, yeah, but this is bigger. This is really like that light pulling me forward. So when we look at it that way and we go, oh, again, it's the yes in the moment. So I want to circle back to your comment about your daughter and the boyfriend.
Yep.
One of the things that's important to know is the universe basically has three answers for us when we ask a question. One is, yes, you can have that. It's the right time, place, etc. Two is not yet. Not yet is a maybe. A maybe is something that's right now is not a yes, it's a no, but we're trying to make it a yes. We want it on our timetable. So we're trying to force things. That's what a maybe is. And then, of course, there's no. But when we get the answer of no from the universe, what it's really saying is no, because I have something better for you. You think this is as good as it can get. I know better. So hang in there. Keep going. So instead of looking at it as, oh, no is I'm getting shut down, there's no options. It's basically the universe going, hang on, because we got better stuff down the road. Don't go selling out for this one. This is not the thing you're looking for. Of course, you don't know that yet because you don't even know what's down the road. The universe does.
It's amazing. I was listening to something this morning and it was talking about doing these things daily for the sake of following your yes, essentially, in your terms, regardless of whether it's a success or it's going to be a fail or whatever it is, just doing it for the sake of really following that, that resonant, that your heart, that's your full expression. And that what I hear you saying is like, when you do this on a day-to-day basis and you're kind of listening for that yes, and you're following it, that's that creation of a meaning or a fulfilling life or fulfilling day, free from sort of like the shoulds or the fears.
Yes, 100%. Because the way you can look at it is your yes is really about you doing the things that support you in being the best you can be in this moment. Not the best you can be ever or the best anybody's ever been, but the best you can be in this moment with whatever you have available to you. And when we keep doing that, we realize, well, by following my yes, I'm actually gifting the world with the best version of me that's out there, which is why I'm here.
Yeah.
To bring my expression to the world, whatever that happens to be. And because one of the challenges is people will say to me, they'll say, well, isn't following your yes selfish and narcissistic? And sure, you could look at that if you're doing it because you want to get from people, but you're doing it because you want to give. You want to give the best, fullest expression of yourself. You want to be your optimal performance with anybody there. And you know that there's certain things you need. Those are your yeses. So it's a very generous thing to do. And it's also, honestly, it's the reason we're here, is to be whatever our personal expression of the divine that we are.
That sounds so beautiful, like blissful. Okay, I have to ask you a question. God, time goes so fast with you, Ken Bechtel. Okay, so there's this thing in your book, and I put my glasses on so I could get it right.
Okay.
What is YDKWYWYKWDYDW? What the hell is that? And how does it help you follow your yes?
So I love that you asked that. It stands for you don't know what you want until you know what you don't want.
Oh my God, that's the story of my life right now. Okay, keep going.
So
I love it.
The thing to look at, and this is one of the things that we do just as human beings, is we go down a path and we're like, oh, that wasn't what I wanted. And then we stop. And we're like, well, I guess I'm not supposed to get that thing. Really, when we have a misstep like that, what it does is it helps us refine what we do want. Now we're going, oh, wait a minute. It's almost like an invitation to explore what you do want and go, oh, that just clarified that. I thought that was it, but maybe these aspects are, but these aspects aren't. Good to know. Now we can keep moving forward with a more refined direction. So it keeps narrowing things down for you. And it's interesting because a lot of times people think, missteps, failures, no, any of those are, you don't like them. They're not your friend. They're actually very much your friend because they're helping you get more precise. So that's what we're looking at, is instead of going, oh, there's a tragedy that just happened because I went down the wrong path. No, that's awesome. Check that one off the list. Don't do anything similar to that. Now I got a more refined target. So that's what this actually is referring to, is don't be afraid of those missteps. They're actually very, very helpful.
I love that. The reason why I said this is the story of my life is because part of this is, where do I want to be? Right.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't know what I want. And my husband and I were like, staying here for a month, visiting here, visiting there, and I just never felt that like, yes. And so it's really interesting because when I get caught up in still trying to answer that question, like, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? Every time I go someplace differently or, I see myself, what I realized the other day is I'm actually getting clear on what I don't want, which ultimately will help me get clear on what I want. But my brain still gravitates toward like, could this be it? Could this be it? Is this it? That's what I want.
Yeah.
So I think this is just like so brilliant, right? So how do we be intentional with trying to figure out what we don't want? Or does it just happen through trial and error?
Well, it can be both. But what I want to kind of give you a little way to, because you were talking about getting up in your brain, right? And that's what most of us do, because that's what we get validated for using is our brains. And so we go in there, we try and figure this out. What I'm going to encourage you to do is when you notice that, for me personally, I will literally notice that I'm looking up, like as if I could look into my brain and see the answer. And then I stop and I go, wait a minute, that's not what's important. That's not where my guidance is. My guidance is in my heart. So I will, and you can do this right now, tip your head forward and just look at your heart and ask yourself, well, how do I feel about this? Because the thing we have to remember is the divine communicates in feelings. That's the language of the divine. It's not words or ideas, it's feelings. But culturally, we've been told our feelings aren't valuable because we can't quantify them. I can't give you a spreadsheet of my feelings and show how this was a better feeling than that was. We have to trust. So when we go, oh, yeah, this doesn't feel good. That's all we need to know. We don't need to dissect it. We just go, okay, what would? Oh, or maybe in your case, use your example of finding a place that feels like home. It's like, great. If you think about that feeling of home, it's not a bunch of checkbox. It's like, oh, well, there's this many sunny days. And that might be a start point. But all of those things that we're focused on them because of how we believe those will make us feel. I'll be energized if there's a lot of sunshine. Okay, so it's not the sunshine. It's the feeling of being energized. That's what we're looking for. So that's what we have to look at is go, okay, my brain's saying this is important. Well, why? What is the feeling I assume that will provide for me?
This is so powerful too. And for those ladies who are thinking about this in terms of dating and relationships, right? It's like, oh, well, all my relationships were fail or all those dates are a waste of time. What I hear you saying is like, no, there's data, there's information in every single experience, and that we can go for the feeling sense of what it is that we do want that can help us guide toward, who is our right partner. Is that what you're kind of saying too?
Absolutely. And again, we've all been in that situation. Like dating is a perfect example where something feels off and you still pursue it. Or, something feels good and you dismiss it. No, that can't be. Why would, he doesn't check the boxes. He shouldn't be the one person I'm excited about, but I am. So we don't follow the feelings, but remember, that's the divine guiding you. I had a good friend of mine who, this is years and years ago, and she called me and she said, so I've got these two guys I've met almost exact same time. One of them I knew from high school, great guy. We've always, he's kind of part of our group. We've grown distant and got back together. And she goes, he's really fun. And then I met this other guy who's he's gorgeous. He's wealthy. He wines and dines me. He's like the, poster boy for what you're supposed to look for. And she goes, but I have more fun with the first guy. Wow. Like, I like being around him. It's just fun. Like, is that okay? That's what she literally asked me. And I'm like, why would it not be okay? Because our culture says you're supposed to be chasing Mr. Hottie. And it's like, right. Yeah, it's okay. Long story short, she started dating both. Turns out Mr. Hottie cheated on her. That lasted very short. And she kind of could tell. She's like, it wasn't that fun. It was kind of cool to go, get wine and dine, but that was it. And she married the other guy.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I think that, it's really what you're saying. And I think I just want to highlight it is there's this bigger picture, right? And so when you're in the middle of the shit and you're confused or you don't know, or you feel like everyone has been like the guy who cheats or the guy who's got this, right? You're in the middle, but also Ken, like this is kind of like really living your life, like it's being alive and enlivened rather than what you were speaking about at the beginning is just sort of like sitting on the sidelines and like waiting, to that hopefully something will happen. Meanwhile, you're in your mind going, I wish I could have, or I should have, or what would it be like if and having that all just be internal.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things, Marni, is if you're following your yes, you're living your life in the present time, doing what you need to do to be the best version of you. What you're literally doing, it's almost like you're a radio station, right? So you're putting out your set list of music. Now, you're not trying to guess who's listening and play what they want. You're playing what you like to play. And the people that like it will find you on the dial and go, oh my gosh, that's my new favorite station. And the ones who don't, just move on. There's plenty of other stations. So you don't have to try and be what you think the audience wants. You need to put out your message and your story and your music so that the audience can find you and go, oh, where have you been?
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Where have you been? I've been looking for you. I always say that, especially in the dating realm. It's like, there's a guy out there waiting for you to be found, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's like, you have to keep moving forward or else you can't. Okay. My last question, and time goes so fast. I know that we talked about the reason why we stay stuck is because we are looking for certainty and our brain is kind of programmed to, going backward to what we thought was safe or simple or felt better. How do you eliminate uncertainty? And in your book, I know you talk about doing that in one simple step.
Yeah. So the key to this is to eliminate maybes.
Ooh.
If you actually look at life and say, it's either a yes or a no right now. Right? Because that's all I'm operating with. I don't know what's coming down the road. I don't know if I'm going to have tomorrow. So what's a yes or no right now? And if you look at everything, like if you made a list right now of things that are in your maybe column, well, maybe I want to do this. Maybe I'll go there. Maybe I'll do this. And just go, okay, if I couldn't have them be a maybe, which would they be, a yes or a no?
That's so cool. And love
what you'll find 9 times out of 10, they're all no's. Because that's what maybes are. Maybes are no's we're trying to make into yeses. But they're not a yes. If they were, they'd already be in the yes column.
Maybes are no's. Why? Say more about that. Maybes are no's we're trying to turn into yeses. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So it's really kind of it comes from scarcity, right? So we think, well, I don't want that it's not really what I want, but I don't want to miss out. So I better grab it now. And so we try and force it to being what we want when we already know it's not what you want. It's not the match. It's not the thing that lines up. In the meantime, there is something that lines up. So if you're spending your time on maybes, you're walking right past the yeses because you're occupied with the maybe.
Wow. So you make a list of all the maybes and then you look at them and you say, which ones are yeses? And then you put the maybes in the maybe in the later pile, or are they just no's for sure? And then you revisit.
You look at it. Here's what you do, Marni, is you look at it and go, okay, here's my maybes. If I couldn't say it was a maybe and I had to choose yes or no right now, what would that be? And here's the trick. Remember we talked about having that deferred life. Most people will go, well, it's a yes eventually. That's a maybe.
That is a maybe.
That's the definition of a maybe. It's not a yes right now. So put your energy into the yeses right now and let go of those things. And if they're meant to come around as a yes, let them. But if they're not, you didn't waste your time and energy trying to go, well, maybe it might someday sort of kind of work out.
Yeah, that's so epic. So smart, Ken Bechtel.
Well, thank you, Marni.
I love it. Well, ladies, I mean, I hope that we have whet your appetite. This is like looking at the menu of what is Ken's book, Follow Your Yes. It's like, I've been traveling a lot. So I look at the menu and I'm like, oh my God, that sounds so good. I have to go there. Yeah. Or I go on Google. My daughter turned me on to this. Do you ever look at the food, the pictures of the food in the restaurant?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I never even thought about it. My daughter started doing that. And I was like, oh my God. So basically, ladies, we have just given you the menu and we've shown you the pictures. Ken, super happy that you've been able to share your wisdom with us. Ladies, the link to the book is in the show notes, but you can also just go to followyourYes.com/book and all the information you need about Ken and his amazing wisdom. Before we go, last thing I want to ask you is, in the last 2 weeks, is there something that you have done that was outside your comfort zone that was like a yes, that was you walking the talk that maybe freaked you out?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me think. That's a really interesting question.
I stumped Ken. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks. It should be most recent.
No. Here's why I say it's an interesting question, Marni, is because as you start building your muscles around following your yes, what you'll find is that comfort zone that you live in expands. So you become friends with risk. You're not sitting there going, because the reason we're scared of risk is we think things are going to go badly. But if we're going, I'm following my yes, even if it's risky, it's my yes. It changes our relationship. So when you ask that, I'm like, is there something that's been uncomfortable? Not really, because I usually just trust that it's the right thing.
I love that. That's so awesome. Oh my gosh. Just dropping wisdom, nuggets of wisdom. Ken, it's amazing. Ladies, this is a lot. This is when you rewind, you listen, maybe even take notes, but don't do it while you're driving around the treadmill because we don't want you to get skid marks on your face. But ultimately, listen again and then think, how can you damn life check yourself? We'll see you next time. Talk to you soon, ladies. Bye-bye for now.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Batista, and let's talk soon.